this?
Is mine on? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, I don't
Is
know.
mine on?
Yeah, I don't know if mine is.
Because sometimes those will like they'll. Mi- Mrs. Pokey is our mics on? Mrs. Pokey? We are? Okay.
Mine too. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Alright.
Perfect. Okay.
We got
Perfect.
we
So
got 1
his
minute.
questions are the same as mine.
I-
So I'll let.
Well, I can hear you.
If you would rather ask the questions that I have, I would rather them come from you because
Okay.
I'm his campaign manager. So
Oh, okay. I didn't
Any-
know. Okay.
yeah.
It looks better that way. Okay.
all the questions that he has, I already went over with him.
He was Maryland's campaign.
Oh my gosh, I love Maryland.
Maryland.
We have our ladies' night together.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen
yeah.
Marilyn in a long time.
Yeah,
I'm-
she's gonna be running for mayor.
Really?
Yeah, eventually at some point.
What?
No, I don't think so. I think we got about 33 seconds left until.
Hopefully.
Don't think so. Last time you.
I know. I was like, I know. I heard myself. I was like, Miss Marilyn, can you hear me? Hello, Miss Marilyn.
Commissioner daughter said, "Do you like her?" And I said, "No, I don't." And it's on Facebook. And I said, "You better take that down."
But no, that's nothing that you have prepared that I haven't already.
Okay.
And she won.
Everybody gets to say something, okay?
And she won.
Exactly.
I like that.
She did?
Gina
So,
won. Yeah.
are you gonna be?
Yeah, I got it.
You're gonna be moderating. Yes,
Talk
okay.
bad about it.
Yeah, you're doing introductions, right? Okay.
That's it.
Where?
There you go. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the Trailer Park Show. We have with us this evening the candidate for the Travis County Sheriff's Department office, Mr. Joe Martinez. On to my left, I have Gavino, which I believe is Gabino, if it was proper. To my far right, I have Mike Garcia. Next to Mike is Adela Fernandez. And seated next to me is the candidate Joe Martinez. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mike.
Mr. Martinez, could you first of all tell us something about yourself?
Well, I was born and raised here in Austin. All for about 10 years of my life, I've lived here in Austin. Grew up in East Austin. Went to the Austin Independent School District. Graduated from Johnston High School back in the 60s. Grew up in the great community of Montopolis. So, as a young man, finally, around the age of 19 and 20, I moved out and went to the state of Michigan, where I became a police officer back in 1968. I was asked earlier this evening if police work was in the cards for me, and the answer to that question was no, because police officers were supposed to be about 6'4", big brutes, and took care of business. Haven't seen these police officers. Moved up in a small community up in the state of Michigan, where I was approached by the local small minority Latino community. They were going to hire about 5 police officers back then, back in '68. And they came to me and said, "We'd like for you to be a police officer." I said, "Are you kidding? That's the furthest thing from me that I ever want to be as a police officer." I'm like, "Why?" He said, "Well, you're very well spoken. You know the English and Spanish language, and you're bilingual. So we'd like for you to even think about it and apply." So I did. It took me about 2 months to finally make up my mind, and when I did, I was determined to finish at the top of the class. We started out with about 28 cadets, finished with about 26, and I finished number 2. Stayed there in Michigan until 1975, came back to Austin, where I joined the Sheriff's Department, Travis County Sheriff's Office. I was a deputy sheriff here in Travis County. I worked everything east of 35 to the Bastrop County line, everything south of the river past Creedmoor. That was my district. One-man car. The cars ran 24/7. You walk in, car was filled with gas. The next guy came in, took over for where you did, and I worked all the shifts: 11 to 7, 3 to 11, and 4 to 12. So from there, stayed with the sheriff's office for another 5 years. Promoted to detective within 14 months, and after that, there was an opportunity to go with the state attorney general's office here in Texas. I worked in the state. They had just developed a new Medicaid fraud unit. Didn't even know what fraud was, but we're going to find out. Medicaid fraud, of course. Working all over the state of Texas. Started there in 1981. Traveled all over extensively through the state of Texas. Did a lot of undercover work with the Medicaid fraud program. Matter of fact, I even had a case up in Fort Worth that I did. It took me about 2.5 years working with the federal government, working with the U.S. Attorney up in Fort Worth. I was instilled as one of their special agents, working with the FBI, working with the postal inspectors on Medicaid fraud, because we don't have a Medicaid fraud law in Texas. The closest we could come was a theft statute or tamper with a governmental record. The case went to trial in Fort Worth. Took me about 2.5 years to get this thing together. And the guy was convicted. He was a pharmacist. He had cheated the Medicaid program for about $248,000, one guy. And the guy appealed the case to the Fifth Circuit based on records keeping. And it was upheld by the Fifth Circuit, so he appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, and it was upheld by the Supreme Court. In all the years that I've worked as a law enforcement officer, that's the only thing that's ever gone that high and come back upheld. You always want to do the best work you can, because every case that you do, you want to make sure that that thing is solid enough to be able to withstand the test of all the courts.
Why did you decide to run for sheriff in Travis County at this time?
This is my second attempt at the sheriff's office. I did try back in 2003. There were too many people on the ballot as 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans, and I was one of the 4 Republicans. And I said, destiny has a role for you. We have a role in this life. My role was to be the sheriff of Travis County, and this came to pass about 20 years ago when I decided that's what I wanted to do, because what I wanted to do was go ahead and set a path for the minorities, Latinos, all the minority children that are born in the east side of Austin, that will someday be looking up and say, I remember when that guy was running for sheriff and he made it. He came from East Austin, the same place I did. And I want to make sure that these young men and women that want to try can try. There's nothing that's going to hold you back. As long as you want to do it bad enough and hard enough, you can do it. And that's why.
So you look at it as being an opportunity to be a beacon of hope.
A beacon of hope and aspirations, inspirations for everybody. We all have the same ability to be able to get to where we want to go if we work hard enough and try hard enough. We can get it. We can get it done. Okay. I've been a police officer. I've been a private investigator. Currently, matter of fact, I own my own business as a private investigator.
You in private business this time? Did you have any questions, Ravino?
Go ahead, man.
Well, Mr. Martinez, it's a pleasure to have you here on the show. I'd like to start off with just kind of a simple, I've been a Republican for a long time, and I'm also Hispanic, so a lot of times I get a lot of pushback from people in my own community. So
Makes 2 of us.
yeah, exactly. So I'd like to ask you just straight out, why are you Republican? Why aren't you a Democrat?
I come from a large family here in Austin. I have 8 brothers and 2 sisters. My mom and dad were Democrats. Mm-hmm. To be honest with you, I was a Democrat also, but I never found a way. When I began to look at the actual philosophy of the Democratic Party and the philosophy of the Republican Party, you start to look at which one fits you better. Mm-hmm. Who are you? I realized that I was a Republican all along. I don't believe in abortions. I believe in God. I believe in country, serving your community. That's who I am. And that's why I became a Republican. And of course, my brothers and sisters are still Democrats. But you know what? They'll vote for you in the election.
Yeah, you can't change them all. So, given your views on what the expectations are of federal laws, and I want to make a very clear distinction of the federal laws and how those are enforced locally, because that seems to be a big confusion amongst everyday voters, which is, and more importantly, what can and can't the county sheriff's office do for a county? Because for me, that down the ballot voting, which we spoke about last week, that is a very imperative role for down the ballot voting, especially the sheriff's office. In Travis County, what does that mean federally down to Travis County for you, for Mr. Martinez?
What it means is that matter of fact, I've had this question asked before. I've had great friends come to me and right after the primary said, I was going to vote for you, but I couldn't find you on the ballot.
Yeah. That happened, to be honest, that happened to me too,
I
to my family.
I said, what do you mean you couldn't find me in the ballot? Which one of the parties did you register with or did you vote in? She said, well, I voted for the Democrat. I said, well, I'm not in that party. I'm on the other side.
And early voting is different than regular primary votes. That's a very distinct difference to make.
What happens is that people get confused, and when they get confused, they think that they're all Democrats. And when I tell these folks, and I give them a card, and it basically says, Joe Martinez for Travis County Sheriff, Republican. But they fail to read on what it says. So education is going to be a big part in the November election for anybody.
Especially because we have a Martinez and a Hernandez.
We have Hernandez and Martinez running against each other.
Martinez and Hernandez, yeah.
And one of these folks is bilingual and the other one isn't. And there's a distinction. It's male or female. It's the distinction of the fact that when you communicate with the community, Hispanic community or Latino community, you're able to communicate with these folks. You're able to tell them, you know where they came from. You know what problems they have. You know that they can come to you and talk to you. And you want to make sure that the diversity in your administration is going to satisfy the entire community, not just one sector of the community, not just a special group of the community. You want to satisfy all the community. And that's who you work for, because they're all going to be the ones voting for you and electing you into this office.
So do you feel at least a partial, at least a part of your sort of sheriff's, sort of the people that you hire, that they be bilingual? How imperative is that to your successful reign for lack of a better word, as sheriff?
I want to make sure that the people that are hired, that do come to work, are able to speak the language. If you're going to serve a community, a portion of the community, speak the language. Be able to communicate with somebody, because it's very important. If I'm going to try to talk to you and I can't understand you and you can't understand me, how are we going to get this thing resolved? So we get it resolved by bringing the issue up to the forefront and making sure that the officers that you hired work in that district or in that area, they're able to speak the language. Whether it be Vietnamese, whether it be Spanish, whether it be German,
yeah.
whatever it is, you satisfy the community.
Exactly.
I think Sheriff Hamilton's website has a link where you just hit it in any language, and it'll address.
But it
the
is
issues.
different hearing it from an actual
Right,
candidate rather
right.
than reading it verbatim from a screen.
Right, but in Travis County, we have so many Asians, so many different languages that even in the hospitals and things like that, you find it very difficult to find interpreters. But let me ask you a question, and I'll put my former chief of staff commissioner's office here and ask you a couple of questions on what is it? What's your position on the, which recently was changed, was a video visit versus one-on-one visit? And you have any in-house questions, Pokey? You wanna?
I just want to know if he's going to
It's not, I have a lot, believe me, I've got a list.
Do
I've got
what?
a list.
That's a good one on those visitation rights.
Okay, but anything for like in-house, no sandwiches or any newspaper.
On the holidays.
Okay.
Presentation.
I didn't much care if they had bologna.
All right. Are
So
inmates
what
gonna
contact
are inmates expecting any radical change in those kind of services? Because I remember some of the guys would mention.
Or any
Well,
radical changes.
when Frazier was here, we used to have this, we used to have that. But Travis County has elected a Republican sheriff. Last one was Keel.
Deal.
And I remember serving, we were there 1 year while Keel was still a sheriff. But anyway,
You were there 1 year. You were only there for a while, but you were.
yeah. Well, no, but I was on the
You
outside.
were on the outside.
Well, I
So
had
now
the
it's-
opportunity
so
of
now
having,
Joe Martinez
I having both.
moving forward.
But anyway,
Yeah.
on those issues, the video versus the one-on-one, and then any changes in, what changes do you see you'd like to do within the sheriff's office that would either reduce the budget or, look at funding?
Or keep and implement any changes that need to be made.
Well, let's start with the visitation. Visitation, when people are incarcerated, it's very traumatic. I work as a private investigator, and I deal with a lot of folks, a lot of clients that are in jail on behalf of some of the attorneys. And what really, really pulls at you is when you see the pregnant wife with 2 or 3 little ones running around there, going to visit daddy, and the only thing you can see is a screen. they need to have some kind of contact with that parent, whether he'd be in jail, whether he'd be on his way out, whatever the case may be. That needs to definitely change. I mean, let's be realistic. The reason it was instilled was why? Is because money. People had to have money to be able to visit somebody. You had to put a card down, put some money down to be able to actually see that person or talk to that person. Even just as long as a few days ago, I was in the Del Valle jail, and there was a guy in there. I was trying to interview a client, and there was a guy in there talking to a video camera and screaming at this camera. I couldn't conduct my interview because it was so loud. He was trying to make a point with somebody on the other side of this video. If you have visitation privileges in the jail, then you should be able to visit in the jail. There should be accommodations for these folks to be able to visit their loved ones. Things that need to be addressed will be addressed as they come along. Surely within two months or a month, you will start to take a look at the budget, see where you can, what can you change and what can you make, what can you improve is the way it works. You cannot go in there and say, well, I'm going to clean everything out and start over again. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. You want to keep that wheel rolling, smooth, where people have the ability to see their loved ones, to do what needs to be done to make sure it's proper. Humanitarian visitations are very important to me.
Joe,
Yes.
Well,
early in my legal career, I served as legal counsel to the appointed elected officials in Jefferson County, Texas. Among them was the sheriff, the commissioner's court, the airport manager, and other county officials.
Mm-hmm.
The reality being what is, do you foresee any challenges with the commissioner's court here in Travis County, given that it's primarily Democratic and you're a Republican?
I do, because we may not see eye to eye on anything, on too many things. But the fact of the matter is, as two professional people that are elected to office to serve the people of Travis County, you have to come to some kind of an agreement. You cannot have it your way all the time. My way has to come into play, because the people elect the sheriff to be able to maintain their jail, to be able to do the rural area patrol, to do the investigation of all of these burglaries and thefts and robberies, whatever occur out in the county, or on the lakes, or wherever. Travis County is a huge county. We have different municipalities in Travis County. You have City of Austin, Westlake, Rolandwood, Bee Caves, the Hills. You have everywhere.
Spicewood.
Mustang Ridge.
Mustang Ridge. You
Yeah.
got all of these people. They all have different needs and different wants. Okay, so going back to your question is, yes, I see a conflict, but if we can resolve these behind closed doors as professional people, we will do that. I will be the forefront in that discussion. You have to discuss the issues to be able to resolve the issues. You cannot take it upon yourself to be able to push through the door and break it open, and everybody's going to be doing what you want them to do.
And sort of kind of going along with that same subject, my question to you was, have you, considering that we're covering, as quoted by James Dickey last week, we have over 1,000 square miles to cover. So what's your strategy for meeting the concerns of as much of the county as possible, whether we're talking Westlake or Lytton Springs? Not Lytton Springs, but Mustang Ridge. How are you planning to cover an area as large as far west as Spicewood, as far east as Manor, and as far north as almost Pflugerville, and as almost as far south as Lockhart? That is a large amount of area to cover. So as sheriff, as the go-to person of anything police law related, how do you plan to cover all this mileage?
Each one of these communities has a chief of police, has a law enforcement agency within that.
Each has their own chief of police.
Each one has a
Okay.
chief of police. You will meet with all the chief of police to be able to address whatever issues they may have, and be able to let them know that you are now the person responsible for Travis County. If they have any issues that need to be addressed, bring them to me, or we'll meet as a group. But we will always address these issues either in public or in private, depending on severity of the problem or the issues at hand. But you will let them know that they can communicate with you. Either pick up a phone, hey, Sheriff, or hey, Chief, can I meet with you? I've got a problem. This is how you address these things. This is how you find out what the problem is. People come to the police department, people come to the sheriff, people come to whomever the law enforcement agent is in that county. The sheriff is the highest elected official in the county. He is a top law enforcement officer of the county. Nobody's higher than him. The chief of police are appointed by the city council and the mayor or the city manager in each municipality.
That's a clear distinction to make.
He could be
Very
gone.
clear.
He could be gone tomorrow. The sheriff is in power, is in office for four years because he's elected by the people, and that's how that works.
As opposed to the police
As
department.
opposed
Yeah.
to the city police department, which
I think that's a lot of confusion for some people, is the police department versus the sheriff's department and who covers what.
well, as long as the city is inside the county, the municipality is inside, they can come to the sheriff.
Okay.
Mr. Martinez, I had the pleasure of seeing a recent interview you had, and in there, they referenced the ICE policy with Travis County of how sheriffs around Texas have the option of detaining illegal immigrants or not for an ICE pickup. And in it, you mentioned the rule of law, and I was wondering if you could elaborate on that and how you feel how you would implement laws that maybe you personally disagree with, or just basically that.
And if
Well-
we could at least start with ICE, with what ICE is the acronym for.
ICE is the Immigration Enforcement, Immigration Customs Enforcement, yes, ICE. Now, going back to your question, the ICE detainer, once a person is in custody, he's fingerprinted. The fingerprints go to Washington, go to the FBI, and they check him out against any other issues anywhere in the United States. They come back and say, listen, this guy's been in this country illegally twice.
No, they do this with everybody.
Everybody,
not just
everybody,
illegal
everybody's
immigrants.
fingerprints go to Washington once he's fingerprinted. So if the person is an illegal alien, is in this country illegally, then he's violated the federal law by not reporting to someone at a port of
Federal
entry.
law.
Federal law.
Federal,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a port of entry where he comes in and registers, says, I'm going to come to the United States for a year, 6 months, whatever, get a visa, do it legally. What happens is that people then circumvent the system, come around the back way, and come into the country. That's voluntary. You can do it one of two ways. You can either come to the port of entry, or you can come by way of the back door. We've had, what do they estimate, about 13 to 20 million people that have been in this, or in this country. That's fine. If you violate the laws of the state of Texas and are incarcerated in the Travis County Jail, your fingerprints are going to go to Washington. I want to know who you are. I want to know that if you've been in this country, or say for instance, you get arrested for drunk driving 4 times. Okay? It's a big problem. You've got a drinking problem. You wind up in my jail. ICE says, wait a minute, we want to put a nice detainer on this man. The sheriff says, go ahead, put a detainer on this man. ICE will then, whatever issues you had with the state government, violation of the law, ICE then says, put a hold on him. We don't want him. We don't want him back in the community. I understand that. That's my job. I will enforce all detainers, ICE detainers for these folks. I didn't put you there. You did. Take responsibility. My job is to make sure that people in Travis County are safe, and they're well taken care of, and they're represented well.
So in the same interview, your opponent talked about how that was a very ridiculous policy, and you're violating human rights, and you're ruining families. The example you gave, I think, is a very good one against your opponent, because we don't want somebody who has 4 DWIs driving free around the county. But would you take a different approach at an immigrant who maybe is a first-time offender, or do you feel maybe that's not your place, and your job is to enforce the law, not to interpret the law?
My job is to enforce the law. That's correct. I don't interpret the law. If you don't like the law, take it up to the legislature or take it up to the federal government in Congress and have them change it. When it comes back to the change of law, then we'll address that. Going back to broken community, broken families. Is it I that put you in the bar, that put the drinks in your body, that got you intoxicated, that you ran over somebody? I do not want to see another San Bernardino in Austin, Texas, or Travis County. I do not want to see another San Francisco incident here in Travis County where a person had been deported 7 times shot the pistol and killed this young woman, ended her life forever. What's the repercussion? Do we say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we'll let you go out again"? No, that's not the way it works.
So, being in the position that you're in, do you find yourself morally and ethically weighing those decisions?
It's not much of a
Like,
decision.
what does Joe think, and what does Joe Martinez as sheriff?
It's not much of a decision to make when the security and the safety of the community is in your hands. This is Austin, Texas. This is the capital of Texas. It doesn't get any bigger than this.
Yeah.
For the sheriff of Travis County to be able to address these issues is an honor. When you, as the elected official, do not uphold the duty that you were sworn to uphold, you are raise your right hand, and you swear to protect and defend the Constitution and enforce all the laws of the state and the United States. So help you God. What does that mean to you? Well, let's see. Somewhere in the back says, I can pick this one. I can pick this one.
No,
It doesn't mean
no,
that.
yeah,
It says
no.
all the laws of the state of Texas, all the Constitution. Defend the Constitution. Defend the state against all enemies, foreign and domestic. When somebody violates the law, that to me is that's an enemy to the state. I need to make sure that we take care of that. And I
it's
will.
a very important message to get across because we're in Travis County, which is very much a they don't like ICE, so to say. But the current sheriff currently supports ICE's intentions, and you want to move forward with those, correct?
For the last 12 years, the Democrat Sheriff Hamilton, has enforced the laws.
So this is a bipartisan
This is bipartisan.
decision to make.
That's
for
exactly
Travis
right.
County. Okay.
Some people have this misconception that they can do whatever they want to do. The sheriff for the last 12 years, this will be the 12th year that he's done this. He's enforced detainers on all illegal people that have been incarcerated in his jail. ICE wants to go ahead and put a hold on him. He says, go ahead and do it.
And you're
that's,
the only candidate
I
that
will
is
continue
for
to
it.
do that. That's correct.
Okay.
There's only one other candidate, and she's complaining that it's going to break up somebody's family. That's not my problem. That's somebody else's problem.
And to be clear, you have a family of your own, correct? So it's not like, this is Mr. Martinez versus Mrs. Hernandez. You have your own family to think about as well. So it's not like you're not taking these accounts into consideration.
My oldest son is a federal agent. Matter of fact, he worked for Homeland Security in the ICE program. He's on the federal side. I'm on the local side. So I do have family. I have grandkids. I have children. Matter of fact, I'm soon to be a great grandfather. So
Congratulations. Take the words out of my
So
mouth.
Travis County, being a very, very heavy Democrat, how do you see, or what are some of the challenges, and what is some of the feedback that you're receiving as you travel the county, regarding that one issue?
The funny part about that is like, it's you that's running for sheriff. Yes, it's me. I'm going to vote for you. I'm a Democrat, but I'm going to vote for you. Today I was at the courthouse and met up with some attorneys, and I've worked with these lawyers for the last 12 years. Worked some of their cases. They say, we want you. We want you to get in there. We want you. We know who you are. We know who you are. We know what you've done. So we want to support. We're going to support you. They don't have a problem voting for me in November. They voted in the primary, which was their primary, which is fine. All we have to do now is educate the people that in November, this is the way it's got to be done.
And your plan to do so is?
Mass mailouts, radio, newspaper, whatever it takes. Media's got to be out there for me. I've got to be able to put it out there for these folks. It's okay. Your hand's not going to fall off if you vote for a Republican.
Well, I always keep saying,
So we know that.
many, well, and you know, Joe, that back in the 50s and the 60s, a lot of our parents, grandparents would vote for Senator Tower.
That's
I mean,
correct.
it was just a natural thing. I mean, so, again, in November is when you can walk into that booth, find both names, and make it a choice
Martinez and Hernandez.
on that one ballot. Because you're right, in the primaries and early vote, everybody's You know,
Confused.
when you ask which party are you going to participate, some of them want to hang you. It's none of your business.
Or
Why
they're
do you want to
confused.
know?
Or they're confused.
You know, and the reason is, well, there's two separate ballots.
Yeah.
And us as workers, are very limited as to how, how far we can go into explaining why and all this. But, so I was just kind of curious as to what type of feedback you're getting, especially from the law enforcement community. What type of response you've gotten from them?
Haven't been in this business since, like I said, started my career back in '68. So I know a lot of these guys, a lot of these old timers, as I would call them. I have a great deal of respect for these folks because I've walked in their shoes. I've worked the hours. I've worked in the uniform. I've worked as a detective. And I hope that whoever we pick as a sheriff is the best qualified individual, the best experienced and best trained person that can actually do the job. And that's me. Street gangs. I work street gangs with one of our most prestigious judges here in Travis County, who was almost assassinated. She and I used to work street gangs over in Duff Springs and East Austin.
That's a tough area.
It's really tough. And I
We,
have a
we
great deal-
need that same coverage in the white collar crime. There's bigger gangs there, let me tell you.
You make a good point because with one of these, I can take more money than you can with a pistol. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
and it takes a lot longer to find you with this one than with this one, because here you may get $20, here you get 20 million.
Well, how would you deal with with white collar crime? There's a lot more political pressure to maybe not investigate as much as you would with a pistol crime. So how do you think you would deal with that sort of political pressure? Would you be able to?
Let me address that question
Okay.
real quick. In 1976, I was a detective with the sheriff's office, and I was assigned this task of a county commissioner.
To
Investigate the county
okay.
commissioner.
Fun
Eh.
time.
We won't go into any
Yeah.
names, but
I say it must have been boring.
prepared a nice big red folder, about this big, and I walked into the grand jury room. Everything's supposed to be secret in the grand jury, right? Well, I walk in there, and there's the commissioner's secretary, is it secretary of the grand jury? Oops.
Hello.
And before it was all over, I thought I was going to get indicted for investigating the commission.
It was one of those Andy Griffin, not Andy, where it's the sheriff and then he turns it around, he's a judge.
I'm like, wow. But needless to say,
How did you deal?
political pressure is very forceful here in Travis County. When you, as the elected sheriff, have one of your detectives investigating somebody for that kind of crime, you will support that man because something has to be done. Justice has to be dealt accordingly to everybody, regardless of what your standing is in society. And that's my true feeling.
Even if it's a member of your own department that you're investigating.
That's correct. That is correct. Corruption is not going to be tolerated by me. Abuse of people is not going to be tolerated by anybody. They have something called internal affairs. You will oversee the internal affairs division. I've worked internal affairs cases as a district attorney investigator, and they're not pleasant.
I'd imagine
You
so.
all- you all know each other. I mean,
Well,
you all work
but
with each
Yeah.
other.
but the fact of the matter is, when the person you're investigating goes and gets an attorney and the attorney says to you, my client's not going to talk to you. Now there's a fence between you
That
and
severed
the
that
person.
tie.
You're not my friend anymore,
Yeah.
right? So now you're on the other side. Whether it be an attorney, whether it be a police officer, whether it be a uniformed, a detective, it doesn't matter. Justice has to be dealt with across the board evenly to everybody. And this is why I do a lot of, majority of the stuff that I do is court-appointed cases. The indigent have to have a voice also in this thing. Because as you know, justice is blind. She holds two scales. So if we have money, so then the scale is tipped? No. I had a case involving a young man, homeless. The way he would keep warm at night was to ride the bus, because until the bus, but he would ride back and forth until the bus just finally get off. And there were people on the bus that would watch to see who was on the bus late in the evening. They would recruit these people to sell drugs for them. My guy, a young black man, was accused of robbing an apartment where he was living, because they would recruit all these people, put them in a room, and they all sleep on the floor. And in the morning, they go out and sell drugs.
About how many?
About 7 or 8 of them. There were- So he was accused of using a firearm, aggravated robbery. He was looking at 25 to life. We went to a jury trial here in Travis County, an all-white jury. What do you think happened at the end?
Well, this is Travis County. Things
Yeah.
are going a little bit different here.
What do you think happened?
I would say he was exonerated.
He was found not guilty
All right.
by the
Why
all-white
do you
jury.
feel that is? Do you feel it was based on race, or
It was
because we are the melting because Travis County is supposed to be the melting pot of Texas? So how did something like that happen?
I think.
Well, it's the smoking pot.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about that. I don't know about the other one. I don't know about them.
What happened was that the investigation was very detailed. And they had one witness that would either make a case or break the case.
And see, these are things that we don't get to see on like the news or like
So,
Snapped or Lifetime or
After
whatever,
we,
you know.
after we interviewed this witness, my associate and I, we get ready for trial. And at the end of the trial, when the young man was found not guilty, I was accused of using my old office to gain access to the witness.
Which you
Totally wrong, totally false. Because every time I speak to someone, I give them a business card. This is who I am. I'm issued a state ID card from the Department of Public Safety as a private investigator. And I show them that, and then I give them a business card. If you have any questions, just call me. So, justice was done.
But there were still some complications afterwards anyway.
Yes.
But
Mr. Martinez.
Yes, sir.
Austin, with regards to the African American community and law enforcement, does not always enjoy the best of reputations. Is there any knowledge or experience that you have with the residents, typical, so-called, used to be typical residents of East Austin? Is there any experience or knowledge you have working in that area that gives you ideas and thoughts about how you would approach law enforcement in that area?
Back, 20 years ago, I was living over on Vernon Avenue, which is Vernon Avenue, right off of Manor Road, northeast Austin. I was there for 15 years. Okay? My late wife and I had a house there, and mixed community. Matter of fact, down the street was a little house of ill repute. There were young women that would come out at night and walking up and down the street for sex. Matter of fact, I think I arrested 2 of them. They didn't like me much after that. So
Their
then,
business.
so then, one night I was at home. It's about 10 o'clock at night, and there's this mother with about 4 little children was banging on my door, and they knew I was a police officer, or with the DA's office, banging on the door, and the little boy was crying. He said, "Sir, sir," he says, "there's somebody dead on our backyard."
Repeat the age?
He was about six years old.
That's a very young age.
Young little boy, and his mother was on the bottom of the steps with her other little children. She was holding one, and the other 2 was hanging on the mother's dress. So I said, "Okay, let me make a quick phone call, and let me get my flashlight, and tell him to get my sidearm, and let's go see what happened." Call 911, told them where I was. It's across the street from my house. It was a duplex. So I walk over there, and they're like behind me. And I see this man laying on the air conditioner outside, sprawled on this thing. And I poked him with the flashlight. Nice big 9-battery flashlight. And he moved. So I knew he wasn't dead. He wakes up and looks at me, and he said he was looking for this lady's sister. That he thought she lived there with him. I said, sir, just about that time, as he starts to get up, APD arrives. And he was arrested for drunk and disorderly. He was taken away.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, having lived in East Austin, I have a lot of friends up in the Northeast Austin area. Personal friends. There's a man that owns his own karate studio. Matter of fact, my late wife, and my daughter trained under him over off of Main Road. He had his own studio there. We did many, many things together. Lots of Halloween programs for the kids there. Lots of things, lots of interaction with these kids. What I think needs to happen in a situation like this, we need to push to build the bridge again. The bridge has been burned. We need to rebuild the bridge to East Austin. We need to rebuild, put our people in the community, whether it be community liaison of some sort, somebody out there to open up and see what happens. How can we address this?
I understand that some of the jail guards or that work at the jails are many times working 16 or enormous amount of overtime. Is that something that has been brought up by any of the unions or the police or the sheriff association or anything? But I do know that. And the only thing that concerns me is that when you have someone working that many hours, the fatigue factor,
And the mental.
and it could be dangerous not only for the employee but the inmate as well.
What I've been told is that, yes, they're mandatory 12-hour shifts. Wait a minute, what's mandatory? How can you demand that I work 12 hours a day for 4 or 5 days? It's impossible. I have to have rest too. And you're right. Your stress level is really, really high because you no sooner go home, you got to come right back to work.
Right.
I knew that when I was working the streets. When you had the swing shift, you'd get off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you come back at 11 at night. That's a turnaround shift. It was like, man, you're tired. And you never seem to catch up. So, yes, there is a problem there that needs to be addressed. And I'll address it with all the
And sometimes that's a double-edged sword, the issue, because when they don't work, not all of them, but when they don't work that many hours, you see them moonlighting. Working. Working, moonlighting, what they call moonlighting.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's still a practice within the sheriff's department right now for those officers to be working, to be doing what they call moonlighting.
I have seen some of these deputies working construction sites.
Right.
Okay, you see the lights going, and these guys are sitting in the car,
They're just sitting there.
just sitting there watching a movie or just.
Are they trying to pull you over or anything? Because I think that myself sometimes. I'm like, slow down.
So you see that they're used for different duties, and that's okay.
That is out of our tax dollars for them to sit there.
No. They're contracted by the contractor, who's ever building the
Okay.
highway, who's ever doing whatever. They're buying that officer's time and that automobile
If
To
they
be-
want to watch cartoons.
to whatever.
Okay.
And they'll sit there for a number of hours, but it's extra pay for these guys, which is okay. Everybody likes to make a little bit of money. But here again, is that going to infringe on your regular
Right.
duty hours? Okay, is that going to cut into your time off when you're supposed to be off? I don't want to see that.
Right.
Because two people suffer. Your kids suffer, and you suffer. You don't. Dad's not here. He's always working.
Right.
Dad didn't go to the ball game with me. Mom's busy. Mom and Dad's work these days. There's male officers and female officers, and they maybe both working for the sheriff's office. What do you have? Absent parents. What do you have? how's your son doing today? One of the other things that it's really important to me is the sheriff interacting with his folks. You want to see him walking, talking to some of the people there. What are the concerns? What
Like in
concern?
the old westerns.
Well, yeah, I mean, the sheriff knows everybody. He's supposed to know everybody.
Yeah, from the saloons to the churches.
That's right.
Exactly.
I don't know about the saloons, but
Well,
we'll
that's what I see the sheriff. I imagine a sheriff on a horse, knowing everybody from the best home doctor that makes the best home calls to the saloons to the churches. I mean, in my mind, that's what I think when I.
Hey, I mean, we've all grew up with Matt Dillon in Kitty.
Okay, maybe not me, sir. Okay.
Okay, they got reruns.
Yeah, I know. Like, not this
Wait a
side of the table.
That's what happens when you deal
Channel,
with.
Channel 55. Channel 55, Saturday morning.
That's right.
Well, I do want to bring up an issue. I knew I couldn't go without it bringing it up
Go ahead.
because, and this isn't on you. It's more the party
Okay.
Oh, no.
quest, the party's quest of reaching out to minorities, the Republican Party, reaching out to minorities. And I'm just kind of curious as to how sincere that effort has been or is. And I'm not only talking about the lip service, but I'm talking about the financing services. To me, I like I've told Pokey, this is a test in my eyes, you know. Is it for real? And if it is, how deep and how intensive? And it's not a question just to you, I guess
Yeah, I
to
think
all of y'all,
Yeah.
you know, because,
Well,
you know, because when I mentioned this to
And we're
some,
changing a great.
Yeah.
We're having a
I'll
grand
take
transition.
that one. That's what I do.
Yeah. Well, that's what I do too.
Let's put it
That's
this
what I do
way.
too also.
I understand that the last Travis County delegation to the state convention had 0 Hispanics and 0 blacks. I know this time, based on what happened in my Senate district convention, there are at least 7 or 8 of us going from that one alone. So I know there's at least been an 8-fold increase.
For your question, Gavino, for specifically because I've helped Mr. Martinez with his campaign, and we've all met, aside from you, we've all met outside of this show. To answer your question, reaching the Latino specifically in East Austin, he's the only bilingual one, and this takes away nothing from his opponent. This takes nothing away from her being a woman, nothing from her last name, her surname. This has everything to do with him. He's the only bilingual candidate. So for our outreach efforts as a TCRP, this has only made me kind of hyper focus my concentration on him and working with you and anybody else that's on the east side of Austin, if you're watching right now, in our Latino efforts, because we can work the Latino effort as much as we want, but as far as our African American, all of our outreach, we even reaching out to we have a Asian Republican outreach effort going on that Mr. Lee has facilitated. So I'm thankful that we have all these. It doesn't matter if you're brown, if you're yellow, if you're black, whatever your skin color is, this man, which he knows in many private conversations, I will hold him personally accountable for all of Travis County, that it doesn't matter what your skin color it is. It doesn't matter what church you go to, you're gonna answer to the same man, the same rule of law. So I don't know if that helps answer your question, but because he's bilingual, he can talk to you and me in 2 different languages and we'll both understand him. And because Austin specifically, primarily is Spanish speaking and being the only bilingual candidate, for me, I think as a sheriff's department, that overall will help communication, whether it's between detainee and sheriff or a woman and a man or whatever the specifications may be. And you can add your own, because obviously we're working on the same campaign.
I was
but
just curious
that was my
because
part of the
because
my portion of the
having
campaign.
been raised as a Democrat, you know, from a little young and
Oh, we've
all
had
the
some
way
kickback.
up,
We've had some kickback. We've had a
it's
lot of kickback.
it's kind of very, in my opinion, good. And I think
We've
that
had a
the
lot of
party
kick-
has opened up because they have a position like the one you have, and then the one that
When
you have, the
when you
the
look at
Latino.
TCRP,
the
you
Latino,
cannot. When
yeah.
you look at TCRP, Travis County Republican Party, as it stands, we have everybody up here, plus other other races of people. So it doesn't matter what his skin color is or what language I may be able to speak. We are all the Republican Party. So this shift of chairmanship is just a minor, for me it's minor. For us, for our campaign, it's minor.
Well, I didn't want to go to
Now,
that.
now,
Well, let me
I think there's one other thing that needs to be pointed out is that
Well, see, he
we
had
do
a
have
point on it
a
also, so.
Gabriel Neal is a candidate for District 46 House seat.
Right.
Hi, Gabriel.
That's new and different.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this question. When you go to the ballot box, what do you look for? I mean, have you done your homework on the candidate?
Especially lower, down the ballot
Down the ballot
voting.
candidate,
Yeah,
the
down
county
the ballot
commissioner, the
voting.
precinct, the county constable. Have you done your homework?
Your city councils, your MUDs,
All of these
those.
people, they're
Yeah.
important. Local politics is local, really is local. So what happens is that when you go to the voting booth, you're looking at all of these names. How do you pick one? Is it eeny, meeny, miny, mo?
And you have Hernandez and
And
Martinez to
and you got
choose from.
two of them. I mean, two last names, Hispanic last names. So what do you do? First of all, you want to make sure that you know what you're talking about.
And
As
you
a-
have a male and a female. That's another just.
you know, you've got to educate the voting bloc. As the candidate, you've got to educate the voting bloc. Here's my name at the bottom of the list. I'm way down at the bottom. There's a president. All
Those
of these
are the
folks.
most important ones. Actually.
So because they're local,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
They're not. We're not in Washington. We're not going to fly to Washington next week.
Poor
when we-
school board
No.
members. They're way down there.
But the seriousness of this thing is pretty big.
Right. I just, being part of the education part, like you mentioned, I think that, I'm going to do what Bill White did when he ran for governor. I'll never forget, that well, the media asked Rick Perry, did you vote straight Republican? Rick Perry said, oh, yes, I voted for all of my boys. Okay. And then they asked Bill White, when he voted early, did you vote straight Democrat? And he said, no. So come November, I'm a Democrat, but I'm not going to vote straight Democrat. I'm going to vote for Joe. And that's part
There's
of
a lot of
the,
Republicans
and,
in
and
your
that's
shoes, actually, also.
and that's part of the education part that, and like Joe mentions, we get people, Pokey, that go to the polls and they say, what, they tell you, I want to vote for so and so.
Or they're anarchists or
Yeah,
libertarians. So
and-
this kind of.
And
this
they
is
say, well,
represents
here's a
everybody.
ballot. No, I just want to vote for, and they'll say his name.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's
That
all I
happens
want to do, and I want to
everywhere.
get out of
Yep.
here.
That's exactly what happens
so,
with a lot of first-time voters. I exactly agree with you. Exactly agree with you.
Gavino, very quickly, I just want you to ask yourself, I want you to look at the array of presidential candidates the Republican Party had this year. We had an Indian, Bobby Jindal. We had two Hispanics. We had a black person, Dr. Ben Carson. And I want you to compare that to the... I'm sorry? And a woman, Carly Fiorina. And I want you to compare that to the array of candidates that the Democrats have put forth this year.
I've said that so many times.
And each and every one of them are old and white. and
Well, I guess it's more because, they feel
I'm so glad you
that
asked
they're,
that.
so established,
mhm.
from our end, that, whereas from y'all's end, from the Republican Party's end, maybe it was that window that opened up a little bit and said, come
It was
on,
a
let's-
big window open.
come on,
We
come
had
on in.
someone for
But-
everyone.
I gotta
know.
take. I gotta take this one.
All right.
The plantation is well under control.
No, I think that, I'm glad that
I
you
ain't gonna
touched.
touch
I'm
that
glad
one.
that you
Yeah, I
touched-
said. Yeah, I said
I'm
it.
glad that you touched on that though, because you're right. During the presidential campaigns, we had everybody from Carly Fiorina to Ben Carson to Ted Cruz
But-
to Donald Trump. We had somebody for
Well,
everybody.
it's interesting that the two, at the very end in the Republican Party, two of the three contenders were Latinos, Cruz
Yes,
and
exactly.
Rubio.
Cubanos,
Rubio.
two Cubanos.
And
Yeah.
Okay.
Cuban.
Okay.
Cubanos.
You want the announcements?
Want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. I'm going to be speaking tomorrow at the general meeting of the Texas Asian Republican Assembly. They've allowed me a little bit of time to talk about outreach and engagement with them, and I'm looking forward to establishing and building a relationship with that organization, that group. It's something that he's. Yes, it is.
Well, there are conservative Democrats, right? So
You know, so
they don't have
Yeah,
to be
it's a
Republican.
rare breed now, Gavino.
There's
is that over
a
at,
little bit for
It's
everything.
over at-
Right. But I think at the
Yeah.
end of the day,
be there.
like
I'll
a
be there.
family, you know, that in
I'll be there.
politics,
Appreciate
one of
it.
the
Yeah,
most
you bet.
important things within the Latino community is them to actually get out and vote, because our numbers are so low.
Yeah.
Exactly,
You know,
and we are never going to
so-
get back to 2016. we
so,
are never going to get back 2016.
You know, whether it's Julian Castro and Hillary that's going to pull them, or is it
Or
going to
whether
be
it's
Ted Cruz and
Cruz,
or
yeah,
or
exactly.
God forbid Trump and Cruz? I don't know.
Everybody is waiting on the silent Latino, the sleeping giant of the Latino vote, and it's up to people like you who are a Democrat, myself, like a Republican, but can walk the middle line, and at least you and I can agree to disagree.
I
and we can
love my Latino voters in my precinct. Which ballot you got to participate?
And I love my voters in my precinct. So whether he's male or
Republican.
female, it doesn't matter what
Hey.
color you are.
That's it.
But I mean, this is the
It's
time.
so
This is the election for Republicans to really stand up and say, look,
Stand
we
up.
don't care what your skin color is. Now, 2016 will never happen again. It doesn't matter what your gender
Right.
is, what your skin color is. It doesn't matter what your age is. Get out and vote, because you will never get 2016 again.
One
I have,
more
I have
one-
one question for Gavino.
Oh,
again.
okay.
This is, you said you wanted the establishment to represent you in the Democratic Party. Why?
No. What I said is that the Democratic Party candidates are establishment people. That's what I was saying there.
Okay.
No, not that I wanted. No,
Oh,
I'm
like-
not too crazy about the Democratic presidential candidates choice that we have. But my God.
I think we're having a little bit of that on
Yeah,
both sides.
yeah. So
It's
you know,
like, what?
maybe we're gonna have a candidate that
I
had
have-
nothing to do with any of these primaries at the end of the day.
At the end of-
I
well,
have
at
one
the end
more.
of the day,
I
we-
have
we
one
do
more
have
question for
one
Mr.
leader of the free
Martinez.
world.
Yes, sir.
I have one more question for Mr.
Oh,
Martinez.
go ahead.
Mr. Martinez, in 2 or 3 minutes, explain why you're the better choice as opposed to your Democratic opponent.
The best choice as opposed to your Democratic opponent.
The most experienced, the most qualified, the better trained. I'm from Austin, for Austin. I was born here. I was raised here. I'm the only bilingual candidate in this party.
How many years of experience?
I've got probably over 45 years of law enforcement experience.
45.
Yeah. And like I said, the career began in '68. And now as a businessman, as a person that's sat on boards, I've sat on the Travis County Credit Union board, in the board of directors as a vice president, dealing with millions of dollars. More like I said, more experience than anybody, either Democrat. They can't hold a candle yet. I wish they could, but nobody can. So I am the best qualified. The only one that can take over where Mr. Hamilton's leaving, and it'd be an honor to step in his shoes.
How do people get a hold of you, or you to, whether they want to volunteer for your campaign, or?
We have a Facebook page, and that Facebook page can also lead you to the Joe Martinez 2016
Martinez for sheriff.com.
what he said. I'm more on social media, so he's more the older crowd. So you know, I had to throw that in there. So you can find us on social media or on the website, and you can also find our this episode will be put on YouTube, so you can watch this all in full episode from 1 minute to the next.
And I did put a challenge to the young Latinos, to Mike and the other Mike and David and all those Republicans. So you have a candidate here, get involved.
What about
You're a
chopped liver?
local. No, well, I know, but you're the manager. I mean, it's a given. But I'm talking about all these. You know, even young. You know, you're already
No,
involved.
yeah.
You're already
Exactly,
involved.
yeah.
I'm talking about all these others.
It is extremely
that
important.
are out there that are very resourceful, have a lot of savvy, have a lot of social
Very
media.
smart, technically savvy.
You know, they need to get involved. They need to get involved in Joe's campaign so that they could illustrate that this is a party not only for other
And
people,
this
but
is a
it's
Democrat
you know.
speaking about a Republican, so,
So-
we're clear that we can't
so,
have
no,
some
so-
bipartisan
so-
views. We can't
so
have.
Mike,
we
David,
can
what's
work on
Mike?
things
The other
together.
Mike's last name?
Dominguez.
Dominguez, but the other Mike, all the people that work for Corning,
Cargill.
all the young kids that were working for Corning.
Yeah, that's right.
Remember?
Oh,
You have a candidate.
Oh, we're gonna run out. We got 30, 40 seconds
Okay,
left.
so-
Any announcements?
to our guests, do we have anything?
It's been a pleasure being on the panel with you.
We're gonna have you back. We got plenty of stuff coming up.
Okay.
Next week we're gonna have a good show. Week after that we don't have a show on the 4th.
Closing
Police.
comment-
On the 11th we
closing-
had the police chief.
Closing comments for Mr. Martinez?
I want to thank everybody for the invite to this forum, and it's been a pleasure. And I'd like to come back again later on in the summer. Great crowd. Please, please, please volunteer. Please vote in the November election.
Absolutely.
And I'm the only Hispanic running in this election, only bilingual Hispanic from Austin for
Perfect.
Austin.
All right, anyway, appreciate y'all watching, folks, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.